Picture this moment. It's late July, you've been patient, you planted those garlic cloves back in October, tucked them into the cold earth before the first hard frost, and waited through an entire winter. You watched the green shoots emerge in early spring like little soldiers rising from the ground. You watered them faithfully, you pulled the weeds, you admired the tall, proud, strappy green leaves swaying in the summer breeze. 8 months of patient, faithful gardening. 8 months of anticipation. And then the day finally comes. You grab your garden fork, you kneel down in the dirt, and you gently pry up that first plant. You pull it from the soil, shake off the dirt, and your heart sinks. Instead of a fat, fragrant, multi-cloved bulb, you're holding what looks like a pearl onion on a stick. A single, pathetic, undivided little nub. Or worse, a bulb so small and scraggly it isn't even worth peeling. You stare at it. You look back at the plant. The leaves were gorgeous. The stem was thick. Everything above ground screamed success. But the underground told a completely different story. This, my friends, is the cruelest trick in all of gardening. Because unlike potatoes or carrots, garlic gives you absolutely no warning. The plant lies to you for 8 straight months and only reveals the truth on the day you finally harvest. Today, we're going to expose the underground truth nobody tells you. We're going to find out why your garlic decided to grow a beautiful hairdo instead of making you actual food, and more importantly, how to make sure this never happens to you again. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The cruel biology of garlic. Before we fix anything, we have to understand what a garlic plant actually is. Because here's the thing, garlic is not a vegetable in the way you think. Garlic is a biological time capsule. It's a plant with a very specific memory, a very specific set of environmental demands, and absolutely zero flexibility about any of them. A garlic bulb is not a root. It's a cluster of modified leaf bases, each one a clove, stored underground as a survival strategy. For that clove to divide and multiply into a proper bulb with 8, 10, 12 cloves, the plant needs to receive a very specific series of signals from the environment, in the right order, at the right time, at the right depth. Miss any one of these signals and the plant just keeps being a single clove. It grows leaves, it looks healthy, it goes through the motions, but it never actually does the one job you asked it to do. The most important signal is called vernalization, which is a fancy word for the cold stratification period. Garlic must experience a prolonged period of cold. We're talking at least 6 to 8 weeks below 10 cc, while the clove is at the correct soil depth. This cold period is what flips the biological switch in the clove's DNA and tells it, okay, it's time to divide, start making more of yourself. Without that signal, the clove just grows a leafy plant on top and stays a single undivided clove underneath, forever. The 3 primary reasons your garlic failed. Let's cut to the chase. If you pulled up a disappointing harvest, you are guilty of one of these 3 sins. In order of frequency, here they are. Sin number 1, the depth mistake. This is the single most common cause of garlic failure, and it's heartbreaking because it happens at the very beginning, 8 months before you even find out. When you plant garlic cloves too shallow, say just an inch deep or barely pressed into the surface, the clove sits too close to the warm surface soil during winter. The temperature swings wildly. It gets cold at night but warms up in the sun during the day. That inconsistent temperature means the clove never receives the deep, steady, prolonged cold signal it needs. The result? You get what gardeners call a round, a single clove bulb that looks like a garlic-flavored marble. The plant grew, the leaves were fine, but the vernalization signal never properly fired, so the clove never divided. It just grew into a bigger version of itself. The correct planting depth is 3 to 4 inches deep, pointy side up, in October, before the ground freezes. This puts the clove in a zone of stable soil temperature, where the cold signal is consistent and sustained. 3 to 4 inches, not 1, not 2, not 6, 3 to 4. Sin number 2, the nitrogen trap. This is the sin of loving your garlic too much. You see those vibrant green leaves in April and May, and you think, I bet some fertilizer would make them even better. You throw down a handful of lawn feed, or some high nitrogen chicken manure, or a granular 20-10-10, and you pat yourself on the back. You have just murdered your harvest. With kindness, but you've murdered it. Here's what happens. Nitrogen is the fuel for green leaf growth. The more nitrogen you give the plant, the more it spends that energy on building leaves instead of building the bulb. The plant becomes a show-off, a diva. It grows tall, dramatic, beautiful foliage, and it completely forgets about its underground responsibilities. You've essentially told the plant, "Don't worry about the bulb, honey, just be pretty." And the plant listens. This is the exact same mechanism that causes lawn fertilizer to destroy nearby tulip and daffodil plantings. All bulb-forming plants hate excess nitrogen after a certain point in their growth cycle. For garlic, the rule is simple and absolute. No nitrogen fertilizer after February. Feed it gently in fall and early spring, and then stop. Let the plant get hungry in May and June. A slightly hungry garlic plant is a plant that says, "Well, I guess I should start stockpiling energy underground." A well-fed garlic plant is a plant that says, "Why bother? Life is good up here." Sin number 3, the harvest window mistake. So, let's say you did everything right. You planted in October, you buried it at the correct depth, you resisted the urge to fertilize in spring. Can you still mess this up? Absolutely, because garlic has an incredibly narrow harvest window, and most people miss it. The perfect moment to harvest garlic is when the lower 3 or 4 leaves have turned brown and dry, but the upper 4 or 5 leaves are still green. That's it. That's the window, and it's only about 2 to 3 weeks long, typically sometime in July depending on your climate. Harvest too early, and the cloves haven't fully separated inside the wrapper. You get a soft, mushy bulb with poorly defined cloves. Harvest too late, and the papery wrapper around the bulb breaks down in the soil. The cloves start to separate and spread apart underground. The bulb loses its protective covering, and it will not store at all. You'll be lucky to get a month out of it before it rots. Pay attention to those leaves. They are your harvest calendar. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The Amish method, the old ways that still work. In Amish communities, you'll often see garlic harvests that look like something out of a picture book. Massive, fragrant, firm bulbs with 8 to 12 perfectly formed cloves hanging in braids from barn rafters. They don't use any special fertilizers or high-tech tricks. They use discipline and tradition. The Amish plant their garlic on a specific schedule, usually in mid to late October, 3 to 4 inches deep, in soil that has been amended with compost the previous spring. Not fresh manure, because fresh manure is too high in nitrogen. They mulch heavily with straw right after planting, which stabilizes the soil temperature through the winter and ensures that vernalization signal fires correctly. Then, and this is the part most modern gardeners completely miss, they cut the scapes. In June, hardneck garlic varieties send up a curling flower stalk called a scape. If you leave the scape alone, the plant will put its energy into producing seeds. If you cut the scape off when it makes its first curl, the plant redirects all that energy back into the bulb. This single act can increase your final bulb size by 20 to 30%, and the cut scapes themselves are delicious. Stir-fry them, blend them into pesto. They're a bonus harvest. After harvest in July, the Amish don't just throw their garlic in a box in the kitchen, they cure it. This is the step that almost every home gardener skips, and it's why so much homegrown garlic rots in storage by September. The curing process is simple. Bundle your garlic in groups of 8 to 10 plants, tie them with twine, and hang them upside down in a warm, dry, well-ventilated space for 3 to 4 weeks. A barn, a covered porch, a shed with the windows open, not in direct sunlight, not in a damp basement, just warm, dry, and airy. During those 3 to 4 weeks, the outer wrappers dry out and harden into that papery protective shell. The neck dries and seals the bulb, and the flavor actually intensifies and mellows. Properly cured garlic will store for 8 to 12 months. Uncured garlic will be mush by October. The variety secret: choose forgiving genetics. Here's the final piece of the puzzle, and it's one that could save you years of frustration. The garlic you buy at the supermarket is almost always a soft neck variety, bred for massive industrial production in California. Softneck garlic is fussy. It needs a long, mild winter and a warm spring. If you're growing north of Virginia, softneck garlic will fight you at every step. What you want are hardneck varieties: rocambole, porcelain, purple stripe. These are the varieties the Amish have grown for generations. They tolerate cold winters. They form larger cloves that are easier to peel. They produce those delicious scapes. And most importantly, they are dramatically more forgiving of the small mistakes every gardener makes. Plant them a little too shallow? They'll probably still bulb. Skip the scape cutting one year. They'll still produce a decent harvest. Hardneck garlic is the crop that wants to succeed. Softneck garlic is the crop that demands perfection. If your garlic grew beautiful leaves but gave you a pitiful harvest, the problem isn't your effort. It's a mismatch between what you gave the plant and what the plant actually needed. Plant deep in October. Withhold nitrogen after February. Cut the scapes in June. Harvest in that narrow July window. Cure for 3 to 4 weeks. Choose hardneck varieties. Do these 6 things, and I promise you, next July, when you kneel down in the dirt and pull up that first plant, you won't be looking at a sad little marble. You'll be holding a fragrant, multi-cloved, beautifully formed bulb, the kind your grandmother would have braided and hung in the pantry. The garlic wants to give you a bulb. You just have to stop getting in its way. Have you ever pulled up a garlic plant and found nothing but a single sad little clove? What do you think went wrong? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Share your failures, share your victories. We're all learning from the soil together. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now and don't forget to subscribe.